All right, if you're on an IVF or surrogacy journey, you know there are a ton of decisions to make. And one of the biggest, how to prepare for a frozen embryo transfer. Today, we're going to break down the science behind your two main options.
Okay, so what are your options here? When it comes to getting your body ready for that embryo, you've basically got a fundamental choice to make. Are we going to follow your body's natural lead, or are we going to use medication to kind of take control of the timeline? Let's dive in and explore both. So, your journey is going to follow one of two main paths, what we call a natural cycle or a medicated cycle. Now, the natural cycle, that's all about working with your body's own rhythm. The medicated cycle, though, that one totally takes the driver's seat. It uses medication to control everything, the timing, the prep of the uterine lining. I mean, they both have the exact same goal, get that uterus ready for implantation, but boy, do they get there in very different ways.
So let's really get into the nitty-gritty of how each of these paths actually works. Because understanding the biology, what's happening inside your body, is absolutely key to weighing the pros and cons when you talk to your doctor. You know the biggest, most crucial difference between these two methods? It all comes down to one key player, something called the corpus luteum. Just think of it like this. It's a temporary hormone factory that your body builds right after you ovulate, and its job is huge. It pumps out progesterone and other hormones that are critical for supporting the very earliest stages of pregnancy. And as you're about to see, whether this little factory is open for business or not is the single biggest difference between these two protocols. Okay, so with a natural cycle, we're pretty much letting your body run the show. The clinic is just watching, monitoring your cycle to see when a follicle gets mature. Then, once ovulation is confirmed, whether it happens all on its own or gets a little nudge from a trigger shot, boom, the transfer gets timed for that perfect window, about 5 or 6 days later. The real star here is that corpus luteum just doing its thing. Though, to be fair, your doctor will probably give you some extra progesterone, just to be on the safe side. Now, the medicated cycle, it's a whole different ballgame. It really is like programming a GPS. First step, your body's own cycle gets completely shut down. We're talking suppressed. No ovulation means, you guessed it, no corpus luteum. From there, medications take over completely. You've got estrogen to build up the uterine lining, and then progesterone is added to make that lining perfectly receptive. And the result? The clinic has total control. They can schedule that transfer down to a very specific day, even a specific time. Okay, so all of this brings us to the big one, right? The question everyone wants to know, do these different approaches actually change the outcome? Does all that control you get with a medicated cycle, or, the more natural process, does it really mean a better chance of a successful pregnancy? Well, the evidence from literally thousands and thousands of transfers is actually pretty clear. When you look at the bottom line, the goal of a live birth, both methods are considered pretty much equally effective. Sure, you might find some small studies here and there that show a slight edge one way or the other, but the big picture, the really large-scale data, it shows they're comparable. And this really just drives that point home. When you look at the data from a ton of cycles, the live birth rates for natural and medicated are neck and neck. So if the success rates are basically the same, then the decision has to come down to other things, right? And it turns out there are definitely some other important factors to think about. And this is where things get really interesting, because we're going beyond just success rates. There's what you might call a hidden health factor, because success isn't the only thing on the table. New research is starting to point to some really important differences between these protocols that could actually affect the health of the pregnancy itself. Yeah, this is where the conversation in fertility medicine is really starting to shift. We're seeing new research that points to a potential difference in health outcomes for the mother. Specifically, some pretty significant studies are suggesting that pregnancies from a fully medicated cycle might carry a higher risk of hypertensive disorders, things like preeclampsia. So what's going on here? Why is that? Well, the key seems to be our old friend, the corpus luteum. Remember how it's completely absent in a medicated cycle? Well, it turns out that little gland doesn't just make progesterone. It also produces other super important hormones, like one called relaxin, that helps your whole cardiovascular system adapt to being pregnant. So without it, your body kind of misses out on this natural protective support system. And that's what researchers think is linked to that increased risk of high blood pressure problems. Okay, so let's put it all together. We've got similar success rates, but we've got different health considerations and totally different processes. So how in the world do you and your doctor figure out which protocol is the right one for you? Well, the choice really boils down to a series of trade-offs, and you can see them laid out here. With a natural cycle, you're using your body's own hormones, which is great.
but you have way less control over the timing, and it might mean more monitoring appointments. On the flip side, a medicated cycle gives you complete control over the schedule and fewer visits, which is awesome for planning. But it means you're relying entirely on outside hormones.
So this is really what it all boils down to. These are the exact questions to take with you to your fertility team. I mean, do you have regular cycles? If so, a natural cycle could be a fantastic option. But what if your cycles are all over the place, or you need to coordinate travel and work? Well, then the predictability of a medicated cycle might be non-negotiable. And now you can also bring the long-term health stuff into that conversation, making it a truly shared decision.
Ultimately, all of this is to empower you for that big conversation with your doctor. There's no single best answer that fits everyone. The right path is simply the one that best fits your body, your life, and your health priorities. So the question I'll leave you with, the one to take with you, is this. What's the most important factor in your transfer plan? Your body's own natural rhythm, or having that precise scheduling control?